Welcome to the Lifestyle First podcast, discussing lifestyle medicine and making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. One question, 2 research reviews, and 3 actionable health tips, all centered around the Lifestyle First method, your blueprint for the 10 key routes of optimal health and happiness. And now your host, lifestyle medicine physician and coach, Dr. Alka Patel.
Hello and welcome to Series 6, Episode 7 of the Lifestyle First podcast. And the theme that we're focusing on today is why for your connections. And the one question that we're asking is, how can you change the trajectory of your connections with your words? And to answer that, I would like to introduce you to my guest today, who is Patty Mohler. She's TEDx speaker with TEDx LennoxVillage, and her talk, which is Invitation to Change, Transforming Relationships, One Word at a Time. Now, Patty is a licensed mental health counsellor, and she helps individuals and families and businesses to understand and overcome interpersonal communication challenges so that they can build long-lasting, deep and meaningful relationships. And Patty is also the author of the best-selling book, Renew and Restore: How to Communicate, Connect and Celebrate Your Best Self. And she's got an unwavering belief that everyone can design and create the life they were meant to live, regardless of the challenges around them. So, Patty, welcome. I am so delighted to be speaking to you today.
Oh, hi, Alka. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me to be here and have this conversation. It's one I love to have.
Absolutely. So, communication and connection. Now, we know that that is the essence of being human, right? So today we're asking, how can you change the trajectory of your connections with your words? Now, when I think of words, I usually think of what I say. But I think the use of words, it does also involve how we say what we say, why we say what we say, and when we say what we say. Because I think, words, as you very well describe, are our way of building connection and communication. Right. So really what I wanted to ask you to kickstart the episode today is, in your professional experience as a counsellor, what do you think is most important about the words we use? Is it what, how, why, or when?
Great question. I love the question. And communication is number one, and words definitely do matter. We know that they matter just the way we have an intonation around them, where they are placed. And one of mine is to own your own feelings. And we have really truly walked away and stepped away. So we use a lot of we language. We use a lot of you language. And so I always encourage anybody in my office to use what I call I language, not I's, but I language, and starting your statements with the word I. And it's not something that we've been trained to do. It is a skill. And so we're not very good at it in the very beginning, but when we do learn how to do that, it not only empowers ourselves because we get to state it from where our perspective is, and your perspective really can't be wrong. If you're saying a sentence like, I feel scared. Well, you can't be scared about that. Yes, I can. Nobody can change that because that's exactly how you feel. So I really believe I feel, and following it with a feeling word, not that because Susie or January went that way. Needs to be I feel and have the feeling word. And then nobody can really argue that your point's not well made because that's exactly how you feel. Most of us start our sentences with the word you. And actually, we know quite a bit of data about the word you. If I was standing up, I'd show you, but I'll give you a visual. What we normally do when we say the word you, the receiver of that either has a little slight cock of their hip, their knee softens, or we actually take a mini step backwards with our hands just lightly at our hips. And both are really defensive positions because we're waiting for what's going to happen. And it stemmed from when we were kids. very much stemmed from, you should get a better grade, you should get out of that tree, you should go do that. So we got prepared for, something not good's going to happen. And that's how it feels. We just slightly brace, just like that. And when we learn to take that out, we open up a world of communication with people because they didn't get defensive right off the bat. And when we can lower people's defense down, we have a way of getting in and making a deeper connection.
Wow, that is so interesting, actually, because you're almost sort of talking about subconscious or unconscious communication, because we don't really
Correct.
consciously choose all our words or our sentence openers. But I think there's a really interesting exercise to be done there. Maybe spend the next 24 hours thinking about just how naturally you use the words you and I. And I'm just thinking about myself here. I probably will find that I use you way more than I use I. And I think that's a really interesting concept, is actually thinking more consciously about the effect
Yes.
of your words on others. Because I think what you're describing when you're talking about defensiveness is that sense of identity being eroded, or even
Yes.
shame, and that's what sort of triggers our defensiveness as well, isn't it? It's again a very natural position to take, a position of defending your identity, defending who you are, defending your place in this world as well.
And if we've come out of any type of dysfunctional home, and at some point all of us probably are, so we can get over that, right? But if we came out of the you're not good or you're a bad person, if we've grown up with that word you is exactly what you said. It comes with that shame piece that is automatically triggering, and people shut down. And I really do exactly what you said for my own clients, is the challenge of try not to start a single sentence with the word you for, well, I'm trying to get them to do it forever, but at least the 24 hours. And we're going to find out and I do it. I roll over my sentence, but I'm going to give you a really great example of how it does work. I was working with a client, and this person needed to have a really difficult discussion with their husband, one of those sensitive areas. I won't mention it, it's not important, but it was a sensitive area, especially for them. They never get past 1 or 2 minutes, and then it's done, right? And they stop. So we really worked very hard on the opening line. I feel whatever their feeling words was about this subject. And the client came in the next day and said, oh my God, we probably talked for 1 hour to 2 hours because I was so slow and determined not to say the word, well, you, and kept it about how I felt about this subject, and it flipped it around. When I get and that was after the TEDx talk. And so when somebody comes back in and really affirms that they're putting it into work, especially in those big moments, the little moments like, you can go over there, little moments, okay, that those get lost, but the big ones, but how are we going to use them in the big ones if we don't use them in the little ones? So it's about practice. It's about a skill.
Yeah, and I love that. I think, as you say, practicing it in your normal day-to-day, so that when that big challenge arrives, you're already pumped and primed for your response, because you've started to develop a habit around this as well. And your TEDx talk was so powerful, Patty. I really
Thank you very much.
And in fact, watched it a number of times, because there's so much in there. You talk about other words as well. So right now,
Yes.
you talked about you and I as a switch. Can you tell us about other words which we can also think about more consciously?
It's the one that I think we really need to change, and we're not, again, it's subconscious, is the word why. When we ask a why question, if I said to you, why are you wearing that shirt today? You instantly have this internal, I'm sure, feeling of, oh, does she not like my shirt? Does it not look right? Is something wrong? You want to defend it. So I tell people all the time, just use any of the other whodunits, because you're trying to be curious. It comes from a wonderful place. It comes from curiosity. But the why word, why are you going to Mexico? Why are you wearing that shirt? Why did you get that grade? Why did you choose that school? And it usually comes with the tone I just provided. It has a little bit of a to it, which makes people shut down. When we are curious and use any of the other whodunits, we get a story. Tell me about what leads that thought to happen. What led you to think you want to go to that school? Tell me about going to Mexico. What does that mean for you? We get these wonderful stories and they probably go on far longer than what we thought we'd get. But that is also the point when you're trying to make a connection, a deep, intimate connection, not a sexual connection, but an intimate connection with our friends, families, and colleagues. So the word why is one of those words, if we would just kind of toss it around. And I understand the larger question. I think you and I've even talked about that because we do talk about people's what's your why? What's your why? So I'm not saying it's always negative because that's a fabulous question, right? So I'm not saying every single use of that word is terrible, but when we're making a connection, the why word is going to just have people shut back down.
And I think that's a really important distinction to make because the word why has also got such a richness to it. And, when
Very.
trying to get to the core of why you do what you do and what your drivers and motivators are. I think why is a beautiful, beautiful question for that introspection to really kind of get to know yourself. But I think recognizing that when you're saying it out loud to somebody else, it sometimes can come with a sense of judgment attached to it.
And it's about the intimacy, right, Elka? To me, it's about the intimacy of what the relationship. If it's the person that you're passing in the grocery store and you're not going to see for 6 months, okay. If it's your grandson that you've been estranged from for a little bit of time and they're an adult, that's a big one. If it's a spouse that you can't just connect with somebody, switching that allows that person just to take their defense long enough down that communication can start to happen. That's the beauty of it. We just need that nanosecond to get in.
And again, that defensiveness, it's not just a concept. There have been studies, haven't there? And it was something you highlighted to me in the International Journal of Psychophysiology, which shows that actually your brain is responding. There's electrical signals going on that show that your defensiveness is that sort of automatic strategy that helps you to reduce that impact of what can seem emotionally intense. So there is brain activity that correlates with wanting to just reduce that intensity of that emotion that is triggered by defensiveness.
Yes.
So that's so interesting. So have you got any other suggestions again for how we use words and language to build those connections and those deep relationships? So again, I think you described context is really important. The actual switching of the words is really important. What about some of the non-verbals as well? There's a language there as well, isn't there?
There truly is. And one of the ones that I think that we need to talk a lot more about is active listening. And sometimes people don't understand what active listening is versus I'm listening to you. Active listening is taking your agenda out of your brain space and putting it aside for a minute or two while your person that you're talking to has space. Because what happens is when we're talking, we're formulating our reply. And so when we're formulating our reply, especially if it was started with you or why, we're really formulating our defense in our head, then I'm not listening to the person speaking to me. And so that personal goal, so what do you think? And a lot of times people go, I don't know, because they didn't hear. They don't mean to do that. So this is another skill. It's very hard to do, but putting your agenda to the side and trying to select one or two words that somebody said and use them back in the sentence. And so when I'm talking to somebody, and if they told me a story about an elephant being in the zoo. All I have to be able to say is, so there was an elephant in the zoo, and that really was exciting. I threw the whole exciting piece in, but then they're going to know that I knew that they listened intently enough to know that there was at least an elephant and there was a zoo. And so and people think that's a hard skill, and I make my clients, especially my couples, we end every sentence with, "What did you hear me say?" And then when the other person repeats back, they go, "Did I get it right?" And it's really not fun in the very beginning. But once you get the skill, those two pieces of information drop and it becomes automatic. So, Alka, what I heard you say is blah, blah, blah. And you'll either go, and then the conversation just changes, but it slows a conversation down to very slow. Nobody gets to go really fast because you can't talk that fast. It slows it down. It makes me listen to what Alka is saying. And then I need to be prepared to either tell them what their emotion was or some of the words. It doesn't have to be verbatim, but it has to be a few of the words to know that I know you're with me.
So what I heard you say, Patty,
well done,
was active listening needs you to be present.
Yes.
And really kind of also, I think, drifts into that sense of mindfulness. If you are fully aware and fully present and really curious about the person in front of you, that's active listening. That's listening with intention, and not the intention as you've described to create a response, but the intention of really wanting,
feeling there,
to feel and understand and connect. So absolutely love that you've been able to sort of bring that up today, because I got another bugbear, and I wonder if that fits in with this, which is about interruption. Because if you're not being listened to and not being listened to actively, I find that you're getting interrupted a lot, and people interrupt other people's line of thought quite a lot. Just kind of, if you pay attention to conversations through the rest of the day, you're thinking about talking about one thing, somebody interrupts you with something else, and then you veer off onto another tangent, and then you get interrupted again by the listener's agenda, which wasn't even yours. And I think this connects very, very well with what you're talking about in terms of active listening and connecting as well.
And I think that takes a little bit of courage, right? If somebody goes over there and doesn't, and I think I'm one who doesn't like the word "I'm sorry," because we, especially as women, I sorry ourselves for everything. I'm sorry the sun's out. I'm sorry the moon's out. I'm sorry the weather's out. So not saying I'm sorry, but I think mindfully being able to interrupt somebody and say, "Excuse me, may I please finish my thought?" And I think sometimes, again, that's a moment to moment scenario, but especially I'm thinking couples, because I do an awful lot of couples work, and that can be a tendency. And sometimes there's just those people, but if you're not trying, this is my key, I think. Do I want a personal, intimate connection with that person? If I do, then I'm going to help slow them down so my point can be made. If I'm sitting at a tennis party and there's somebody who just doesn't want to pay attention and they're going to interrupt everybody no matter what, I let that go. So it's what I want out of the conversation with that particular person. Am I looking to make a connection, or is it the person in the grocery store that I'm going to have a 10-second pass by? So I need to make for my own self, what do I want from this particular relationship with the person I'm talking with? And that's going to guide me whether I let a lot of this stuff go or whether I really want to be heard.
And that's about contextualizing conversations. It's thinking about the context in which we're having those. And it sounds like a lot of hard work, being really self-aware and thinking hard about what word you put at the beginning and the end of the sentence, and how you use your ears and what you do with your eyes and where you're looking. It sounds like communication and doing it well is a lot of hard work. Is it?
I think it is in the beginning, but first of all, you become aware, right? Like you said, let's take the next 24 hours and see how many times I use you and I. That's awareness. And once you're aware of these things, you can make the little changes. Again, where I learned how to do this was with the clerks in the store. Instead of when I'd go through a clerk's line, normally somebody might say, your line's the best, it's the fastest. I just learned to say, I love this line, it's so fast. That person just builds up with pride. I still did what I wanted to accomplish was make that person feel good. So I practice throughout my day in really non-threatening, non-knowing ways. And then it becomes second nature. But again, it doesn't matter how skilled I am or you are with this. Those larger conversations, you can take a deep breath and get in the zone of slow down, not react, listen to the person. So I think it can be fun. I have my couples do it all the time in jokingly ways. Like if somebody said, I'm going to go get milk, I hear you're going to go get milk. And it becomes just silly. So we can have fun with it until it becomes part and more second nature. A lot of my couples will have a conversation and walk away from it and then come back and go, we didn't use a single skill. Would we like to try again? Because that conversation didn't work. Let's carve out a half an hour and really use our skills. So yes, they're even very aware they're not using them, but they also now have the tools to come back and go, can we try that again? Circle back, by the way, for your audience is my favorite line. May we circle back. It's one of the least offensive ways, not can we have a chat? Let's talk about this morning. Everybody's like, oh, why? But when we go, okay, can we circle back to that thing? Everyone's like, yeah, what is it? Already, as soon as you said, yeah, what is it? Your defense is down and you're ready to hear that somebody wants to go back to a previous conversation.
And now, here is your lifestyle first prescription. Your 3 activating actions to take you from knowing to doing.
Leave us with 3 actions that we can take today to enhance that communication and connection.
The first one is really to practice switching the words you and I. I think that's just something that people will find instant gratification when they start sentences with the word I. It's empowering. It feels good. It lets somebody's defense down. So that would be my very first one. Practice in active listening. Just pick up one word that the person you're talking to said and really see that you were paying attention to that. We're going to do 3 skills that your listeners can take part in, which I just did right there, right? So, and then I think the third one is really just slow down and know who you want to have intimate conversations with. Knowing who you want to have a deeper, more meaningful conversation with will guide you to which skill is to be utilized to the best of your ability. And practice, just practice.
Thank you for that. I'm now eagerly awaiting my family to come home this evening, and then I'm going to get practicing for sure. So thank you so much.
I love it.
I'm sure people are going to want to tap into you a lot more, definitely to watch your TEDx talk as well. But what's the best way to reach out to you or find out more about what you do?
Yeah, I would love it. Patty at Patty Mohler Counseling is my email address. Patty Mohler Counseling is the website, and I will do the plug on Amazon. We can pick up the book, which has most of this stuff about the language in it. I think you'll find it really useful. And there's some other really nice workbook information in there as well. So please do reach out, keep the conversation going.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. I will make sure to put all your links, including your TEDx talk and your book as well, in the description for this episode today. So that does bring this week's episode to a close, everybody. I would love you to share this channel and particularly this episode, that you too are going to be able to spread messages of health that matter. So thank you so much, Patty. And really, I now want to just wish everybody a happy, healthy day.
Thanks for joining us on the Lifestyle First podcast, making self-care as easy as 1, 2, 3. Don't forget to subscribe and share, and we'd love it if you'd be kind enough to leave a review. To learn more or to arrange a consultation, please visit www.dralkapatel.com. See you next time.